Hi, I haven't spoken to you in a little while via video, but I wanted to come up today because I have a little announcement I wanted to make. I'm speaking to you from hot Portland, Oregon. It was 116 here yesterday, which totally shattered any high record ever recorded here. For those of you living overseas, that's about 45 degrees centigrade. It even got up to 100 here in my study yesterday afternoon, about 38 degrees centigrade, and so far too hot to work in the afternoon or to do little videos. It was also very tough on a piece of chocolate I keep here. Usually I work in the morning, make myself a pot of tea, and I'll drink the pot of tea and nibble at this little chocolate bar, but yesterday it turned into a piece of brown goo. I've put it in the refrigerator and hope it'll harden up and maybe I can eat it later on. But as I say, I've got a little announcement. For those of you who've been paying attention to my little videos, I've read to you a couple of times from my upcoming novel, suspense thriller called To Live and Die in the Floating World, set on a small tourist barge on the canals of Burgundy, kind of hearkening back to when I worked on a barge. I call it the Celeste in the novel, but the real one was called the Wirianda, which is an Australian tree of some sort. The owner, Diane Lim, was an Australian, and worked on that for about a month and heard some wild stories, and I used those a bit as the background for this, I hope, thrilling suspense story that I have coming out October 5th. Right towards the end of one of the tours, we had a couple of the guests say they smelled smoke way up in the bow coming out of the vents, and we just thought it was the diesel engine that powered the boat, or perhaps a little bit of exhaust somehow backing up, and so we told them to clear off, we'd take care of it. We weren't always very nice to the guests, which is probably why Diane went out of business. And I looked around and I saw this large hatch in the deck, and I thought, well, if I lift up that hatch, I can probably see if the smoke is backed up, and we can, if we have to, we'll turn off the diesel engine that powers the electricity too, and take care of it. So I open up the hatch and flames come out a couple of feet high, and I was totally shocked because the boat's on fire. And so I got everybody off the boat. I wish that Diane had thought to train her crew members. I had no idea if we had a fire extinguisher on the boat or not, so I just got everybody off. And I guess I was happy enough just to watch it burn as long as we saved our lives. And Glenn, who was from Sri Lanka, I'm afraid I don't recall his last name. Glenn had his little lava on. That's all he had, a kind of sarong-like skirt. And there was only just a bit of freeboard between the bottom of the deck and the bottom of the hull, and that's where the fire was. And Glenn, it is hot, Glenn had grabbed the fire extinguisher and just crawled in there. Very courageous thing to do, and put out the fire in no time. But then we found out that Diane, the owner, was not half so afraid of the fire as she was of the fire department, a local department that would come out in their little fire truck, and they would have their axes and their eyes would glow with fiendish glee as they looked forward to chopping the boat to bits to save it. And the woodwork on the boat was just wonderful. And so Diane got all of us in the crew, I mean there were like 3 or 4 of us, and the guests too, to form a ring around the gangplank to stop the fire department from taking care of the fire. Because that's the worst fate. We'd already put the fire out, but that wouldn't stop them. And sure enough, they come up in their fire truck, you know, with the siren, odd little sirens they have there. At least at that time, it kind of went boop-a-doop, 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 and they come running along the towpath along the canal. And I'm thinking, who would get out of the way for a siren like that? And sure enough, they get out with their fire axes, and we're saying, no, the fire's already out. And so we took care of the problem that way. We had kind of amiably contemptuous nicknames for just about all of the guests. As I say, there would be 6 guests at a time. There were 3 guest rooms. We'd have 3 couples. And there was Monsieur l'Amiral, who would have this 18th century French naval hat, you know, fore and aft points on it, and he'd walk around on deck with this on it for a good laugh. And there was Mr. Chin Chucker. I mean, this is what we called him. I can't remember the real names. And he was about 80 years old, and he had a tremendous and really kind of touching crush on Diane, who was very attractive. And whenever he passed her, he'd give her a little chuck under the chin, which she liked. It was a gesture of fondness that she recognized. And while we called him Mr. Chin Chucker, we were not allowed to make fun of him because Diane knew he was sweet on her and respected that. And there was another American couple. Their names I do remember, but I'm not going to bring it up now. And the husband always called his wife Honey. So behind her back, we all referred to her also as Honey. And Honey was really fine, except that she didn't understand the protocol on the boat. And so when there was a little service that needed rendering, like the bathroom wasn't quite clean enough, that was my job to clean up the bathrooms, or the bed needed making again if she'd taken a nap during the day, she would just ask whoever was in sight. Usually I was on this little London taxi that accompanied the boat. I'd run ahead of the boat and get the locks ready, which saved a lot of time. So I'm not around, and she would find the skipper, Glenn, and told him to do it. And, you know, to say the least, that's not his job. But he didn't want to refuse her, but he was getting more and more frustrated. This was a certain lack of dignity, he thought. He wasn't being treated with sufficient respect. And so rather than saying anything to Honey, he finally went to Diane. And he's from Sri Lanka, and says, Diane, Honey is asking me to do this, and Honey is asking me to do that, and I don't want to say no, but I'm the skipper of this damn boat, and I don't want to do it. And she's got to understand this. So he asked Diane to speak to her, and Diane pulls herself up to her full 5'4" height. She was from Australia, but she had this toffee English accent like Maggie Smith or something. And Diane says, I don't mind if Honey is a bitch, as long as it's understood I'm head bitch. And went off to have a little talk with her. And I get these stories in indirect fashion into the book. So if you read the book, you'll kind of recognize where a couple of little incidents come from. But I won't tell you too much about the real incident that gave me the idea for the book. And I'd had it in the back of my mind for years, thinking this could be the framework for a kind of scary suspense thriller. It's about a young man named Kip Weston, an American, who is fleeing someone that we don't quite understand who it is or what trouble he's in, but he flees Paris, goes all the way south to Burgundy, and gets this job on the boat, not realizing he has stepped into far, far worse trouble than he had in Paris. And the story is about him coming to realize the trouble he's in and trying to save his own life and that of the young woman he's fallen in love with. And that's what To Live and Die in the Floating World is all about. So I hope you'll order it. I have myself in front for those of you who've seen my previous blogs. Here are the canal maps we use to navigate on the canal. So a little bit of nautical atmosphere. I don't have a sailor's hat to wear. But I hope you will order the book. This is the infomercial part. As I say, do it from the usual online sources. It should be available soon. Or through your local bookstore. Or order it from me, StephenHolgatewright.com. I'll have it out to you the next day with a dedication that may be totally illegible, but at least it's sincere. So I'll be talking to you again soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.